Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Monday Money Podcast. Thank you all so much for being here today. Before we start off today's episode, I want to throw out a quick disclaimer as per usual. I just want to state that nothing we say or talk about in this episode can or should be used as any form of financial advice. With that being said, Aaron, why don't you introduce us to our topic of today?
Good evening, everybody. So, today's topic is surveys. We're going to start quickly with a definition of it, as always, and then I'm going to explain it all in rookie terms, and then we're just going to flow into it. So, first off, the definition web surveys. Web surveys or internet surveys are defined as a data collection method where surveys or questionnaires are sent over the internet to a sample of respondents where they can respond to the survey over the World Wide Web. So, what does that mean in rookie terms? You have a survey provider who is going to be a third-party provider for the survey host. Now, what does that mean? You typically have a website which is going to host surveys for the survey host, which is going to be, in this case, a study, mostly studies, or a company who is trying to collect data from consumers to try to steer their product. But we're going to get into that a bit deeper later. Or an organization. It could be really anything. So how can you actually sign yourself up for these things? So you basically go onto the internet, you search in Google for a survey provider. You can just type in online surveys. You will find plenty of those. You can definitely there's plenty of surveys out there. We're gonna get into which are good and which are bad. Well, we're not gonna get specific in this episode, but we're gonna get into whether some of these surveys are gonna pay you more or less. But that is for later. So you search up your survey provider, which is going to be just a website, a survey website, and you're just going to sign up there. So after you've signed up, you will just do the actual surveys. You will start to have surveys where you can answer questions. Um, there's even going to be some surveys that are going to have a test survey before you actually start the actual survey itself, because these test surveys are basically screening out if you are actually compatible with this with the actual survey. And when you're done with all that, you can there's literally also no time limit to it, so you can start one survey in the evening and then work yourself through the whole night up in the
So,
morning. Yeah.
how long is like a survey? How long does one take?
Typically a survey takes from something from 10 minutes up to 20 minutes. That's like the typical length of it.
Oh, okay.
So after you're done with all the surveys and you have well worked a lot, let's just say, you will be able then collect money. Now, beware, there's some websites that will have a minimum and some that don't. So, which means that you will have to take part in a certain amount of surveys until you can cash out, or have a minimum of let's just say $10 before you can actually cash out. Um, and yeah, that's about it. That's about the whole process of getting into surveys and making money from them. Now, be aware there's some surveys that are scams, so make sure to definitely do your own research on on the survey website or the survey provider in this case. Um, there's also legit surveys, so don't be scared when people hear the term surveys. They get scared a lot often because they think it's always a scam. But we can definitely say there's definitely legitimate surveys out there. You just have to do your research on them.
Yeah, well, kind of like Aaron says right now. Well, there are a lot of survey websites out there who are indeed very much only out there to get the information, collect the information, and then sell your information. There are a lot of working survey websites nowadays. Before we get onto one of these survey websites, there is one key factor which you do have to keep in mind. Surveys go back for years now, like even tens of years, as to my knowledge. Online surveys have always been relatively popular, even if it's just something you talk about or you sell it yourself, which can, of course, turn out to be a complete scam. However, nowadays, if you are going to do a survey, it falls into a few niches, really. So the general understanding for a survey would be to give your personal opinions or your personal information regarding a topic that's already, well, so that's already provided by, like Aaron says, a survey provider. However, there are also a little bit different ones, and we've probably seen these a lot more in the past, um, which will ask you to do some form of payment on a website, so you will then receive credit. Something which is very common for these websites, and you may not realize this once you start, but if you take a look at it, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of the websites at hand, they don't pay out directly in dollars or any other form of currency. What they do instead is they give you a form of website credit. You know about this website credit, Aaron? Have you seen this before?
Yes, of course. Yeah, those there's some service that will literally just pay you out in credits, and these credits you can then obviously cash out in as real money. But yeah, this is
So
it's something niche on some websites. I haven't seen it a lot.
yeah, so one of the fun things about these credits is it kind of keeps you off your feet. So when we really go down to what a survey pays you, if we go into some of the more honest websites, they'll be very upfront about it. Surveys will not make you rich.
Definitely, they
Definitely
will.
not.
They will not.
The average survey pays out somewhere from 50 cents up to maybe like one and a half dollar, like $1.50.
Yes.
So you can't really go into this expecting to make a lot of money. But if you really, really, really want to get as much money out of your day, so to say, and let's say you come home from your job, you have nothing to do right now, maybe you could pick up a survey here or there. But however, with that being said, I don't suggest it too much in that way as a primary money making method. So also one of the things that's very intriguing about doing surveys for cash would be a bit of an ethical question, in my opinion. So, Aaron, would you sell your personal data really for money? Would you be up for that?
Well, if it's a certain if it's the right amount, definitely. I mean, wouldn't we all? But yeah, as you said, this begs this ethical question now. Is it really worth it to sell your data like that? Because when you take part in a survey, you obviously give a lot of your personal data. You will be asked definitely a lot of personal questions, and which by the way is pretty normal for most surveys because there's a lot of surveys out there that literally have a mechanism built into them, either by the website or the survey themselves, where you can't really where it's basically like an anti lie detection. So if you sign up at the survey website and you say you're 27 years old, and then in the next survey they ask you how old you are, and you just randomly say 22 because you want to rush through the survey and do as many surveys as you can, um, they will literally detect that and just that's basically for the website a what is the word here, a reason for you to terminate you out of the survey or from the website itself.
Yeah. So basically, they'll make you ineligible to actually earn anything off of the survey that you do.
Exactly, and from that point on, you can't really cash out. So you're basically always forced to just be very honest and open about your life in this case.
So what I would actually, I wouldn't suggest this, of course, because it goes against a lot of the website's terms of service in a way.
Yeah.
But a lot of the websites that provide you with surveys nowadays are actually very poor at picking out the right kinds of people for the surveys,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that if you are, let's say, underage and you try to sign up for one of these websites, it's extremely easy, right? Some of these websites, because they don't actually pay out in cash, a lot of these will be like PayPal gift cards or any form of other credit. That actually means they won't require as much information from you. They won't give anything directly to your bank account. So instead, they'll do it through something like PayPal,
Mm-hmm.
in the form of vouchers, right? Or these
I've even
gift codes that you can
I've
redeem.
even seen something like with Bitcoin. Like they
Yes.
literally take you from the credits to Bitcoin, and then from Bitcoin you have to transfer over to real money.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of these ways they kind of skirt these methods, right? They kind of already skirt the lines between what's legal and what's illegal,
Yeah.
in the way that, in theory, they are providing you with a form of work, but on the other hand, they're not really treating it as such. So, with that being said, one of the things that I personally would do, or well, of course, I wouldn't do that. It's a little bit against terms of service, but
Yeah.
you can start off with a persona in mind. So you could
Oh,
literally just brainstorm about this for a little bit. So let's say, you know, my name is Klaus. I'm 45 years old. Uh, and then,
you like tennis.
yeah, you like tennis, and then you go off of these things. So the good thing about this is, even if your account gets terminated, which is of course a possibility, right? It can happen at any time. So if they don't like you anymore, they can just throw you off.
Yeah.
Um, what's good about this is, even if you get terminated with these certain types of things, it's very much so that you're not really threatened at all, because you could always make these accounts off of a buffer email or some form of trash email address. There's already free generators out there, and some websites will pick up the fact that they're automatically generated. Don't get me wrong, but some websites will still allow them.
Mm-hmm.
But with that out of the way, I just want to go into one of the different methods, of course, because I can already kind of hear you thinking, so I'm doing this service and I'm getting paid for them. But what's actually the incentive for the company that I'm doing the service for?
Mm-hmm.
And to simply state that, I'll just be very upfront and say it, they just get paid more for every survey than you do. Just think about it for a second. If I'm going to fill out a survey with my personal data and that's going to be sent to some company, the third party provider will probably get a little bit more than I would have earned. So let's say if I fill out a survey for $50, the company or the third party company will probably earn, like, let's say 60 cents. They'll
Mm-hmm.
give the majority to you, of course, because, well, they can afford to, and it makes you feel like you're, worth something, instead of giving you 10 cents for a survey that took you 20 minutes, and they can still pocket 10 cents. So in that way, they can make some money. Something I have also noticed very much is, if you go onto a survey website, which isn't like already one of the very popular ones, you might even be bombarded with ads. You'll just get ads everywhere. We're talking banner ads, pop-up ads, anything really.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also one of the ways that they can earn a little extra profit on the side. So one of the things I like a little more than signing up for a survey service would, of course, be starting your own survey company. Because, well, why not do it like the big boys? The good thing about a survey company is that they don't have too much costs, so to say. They run a website, so they have to run a few, probably, servers to keep everything up to date and working, unless they, of course, use a provider which is preset for this. And then all they really need is people to join their website. And while these people join your website, guess what? You're also collecting data off of them. So let's say if I want to start this company, right? Or you want to start a company, and of course, I'm not sure if you're in the market for a survey company right now, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Who knows?
First things first, we're going to want to personally advertise ourselves as a survey company. I'll be very honest and say, a lot of the companies that put out surveys through third-party means are not very picky at all, because for them there are essentially no upfront costs to putting it on your website, except for a couple of, let's say, like game companies, right? Which you can also have seen in the past.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah, I've seen a lot of those as well.
They'll ask you to play some scammy game to a certain degree, and then you get some payout in credits for that. That's whatever.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it for studies or anything like that, essentially the only thing you will be doing for this is putting the service on your website and then making sure that they're there in a nice fashion. So a few of the ways that survey companies can improve nowadays, don't get me wrong, some of these companies have already done that, is like turning or tuning back the ads a little bit. Because, of course, I don't really want ads, because it makes my website feel very much worse than it actually is,
Yeah.
or less functional in a way.
It takes a lot of the legitimacy of the website out as well, since most websites that run a lot of ads don't have, let's say, the best report to them.
Yeah, exactly. And there may be a different system that you can file for that instead. So let's say we have a couple of people doing surveys here and now, or we get some decent traffic on the website from people doing it. So we've already collected the data of these people as well. Let's say we've got a or we've got a privacy policy there that's ready for them, so we cannot actually sell their personal data,
Mhm.
which is not as good for us as the company itself, but it's a little more consumer friendly, and I think people would kind of like that. So of course there are going to be people who will be doing this for the first time, and they'll be kind of set aback by what they're missing out on. So let's say that we're hypothetically taking 10 cents for every survey that gets filled out on the website itself. And there are going to be some people who will simply not make the threshold for them to actually take out their money. So let's say, like Aaron said, if you need a minimum of $10 on your account to actually cash it out, there are always going to be people who will not reach that milestone and who will simply stay inactive. So a possible policy to introduce here would be something like a user policy, which would guarantee you the termination of their accounts within 2 years or a year after their account is set up. So what this essentially means is if you have somebody with $7.50 outstanding on their account and they have not logged into the website
Hmm.
or made any form of contact with the website in 2 years, you're allowed to terminate their account, which means that the $7.50 that they've earned, or well, not earned quite yet, they have on their account, you can simply take that. Which, well, arguably, it's a little bit of a scummy tactic in a way. Um, you can also keep in the back of your mind that these people will most likely never return to the website, right? I mean, let's be honest here.
Yeah, I mean, if you leave the website, if you leave the website once, you'll probably not go back.
No, exactly. A lot of these people simply realize there may not be a very big worth in doing it.
Yeah,
Um,
especially due to due to the money that you make off of service. Typically, I haven't studied it a lot, so I can't 100% guarantee that the price that this average is going to be accurate. But just to give you an a good anchor point at least, I've seen service not be more than $1. Really
no,
not.
exactly.
Really
You'll
not.
barely find anything like that. And if it is there, for an amount even higher than $1, there will most likely be a very specific demographic that it focuses on.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So
And
you'll most likely,
these the more rather um the service that are going to be giving you a lot more money are also the ones that are probably going to have the test survey in front. And well, there from there on it's just a dice game whether you actually qualify for for the actual survey after the test survey.
yeah, exactly. Which will of course take more time, but you do profit a little more off of it in the end. So there are actually some fun websites that you may be able to relate to or relay onto for some extra information if you're actually interested in things like surveys. A popular one would actually be the Beer Money Reddit, which is a Reddit which specifically talks about the different ways of making money online. And there have actually been some pretty fun survey related ones in the past. So, for example, let's talk about one of these scummy games that you have to download on your phone, right? For a survey, as we've talked about previously at least, you have
Yeah.
to get to a certain threshold or a certain level to complete this.
Hmm.
What will mostly happen is before you even get there, you'll most likely be running out of some form of in game funds, which you will be unable to replenish, and that will force you to make a purchase in the game itself, ironically enough. So, what some people on this Reddit have actually figured out is through the use of coupon codes and redeemable codes for these certain types of games, you can actually easily get over the threshold in completely no time. So the fun thing about those ones, and that's specifically the games ones, to my knowledge, they actually pay out a lot more than regular surveys do. So we're talking about $20 to $25 for some. Which, if you can do that in a manageable time frame, so I believe if you're gonna do that with a game like that, it may be like an hour or two to get it all done. You'll essentially have to earn $10 in an hour.
So to just sum it up a bit for the listeners and for me as well. So you basically have a game, or well, you take part in this one survey where you have to download a game, and then through coupon codes you can get over the threshold of having to buy certain things in the game.
Yes, to be able to get to that achievement or
Yes,
where you
to
need to
that
get.
certain achievement for the
Which,
survey.
yeah, which
Ah,
exactly.
yeah.
If you know how to do that, it's a pretty funny thing at
Yeah, I
least.
mean, you're
So,
essentially playing video games for money, right? Who doesn't like that?
well, usually these will be like your typical slot games, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be like casino slots, but on your phone,
Hmm.
which I'm already not too big of a fan of. So I can't really suggest getting into anything like that, because at the end of the day, slots and any form of gambling can be relatively addictive.
Yes.
So I definitely don't suggest, and I kind of suggest steering away from those at all times. Uh, but with that being said, if you do run a form of survey company, just imagine you do not have a lot of costs there, which is positive. However, one of the things that is there is a form of maintenance, because essentially you will have to, if you're not putting up a third-party portal for survey for the websites that want their surveys on your website, there for them to post it, you're going to have a relatively hard time because you have to do a lot of that yourself, which means you have to gather the necessary assets to put it actually on your website, which for some of these surveys will just be copy and paste. But for other ones who will link you to a different website, you will still need a front page or a front end for that to just make it a little more accessible and to make it look good. It's very easy for surveys nowadays to not look good because most people already don't like the idea of doing a survey in the first place. And those who actually dabble in it, they may be put off at some point, which is very easy, at least for them, to be put off.
Yes.
So, exactly. So, I personally think that a lot of the surveys are very, very unsuitable for us in the Western countries, where basically the money we earn greatly outweighs what surveys can give you. But let's say if you live in one of the poorest countries in the world, right, where a single dollar a day can actually keep you alive,
Yeah.
surveys do seem like a little bit more interesting of an avenue. But of course, this does also mean that there will be, a lot of holes for you to jump through, basically,
Yeah.
because a lot of the service providers will not allow you to earn that money if you're from third world countries, for example.
There's actually like policies for that out there.
Well, a lot of the prices you just have to think about around the globe, right?
Uh-huh.
Not every country earns the same amount of money,
Yeah.
but people still want to sell their products there. So this mostly goes for products with a high margin on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're going to buy a pair of nice shoes, right? Let's think about it. In a Western country, these could easily be worth about $200, €200.
Mm-hmm.
While in more impoverished countries, well, of course, there will still be a threshold for these shoes, so to say. They will be expensive, but they will be made expensive by that country's standards
Oh.
and
Yeah.
not by their own standards, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
So they will find a suitable cost for these shoes there, and then do it differently. It's also like that for a lot of tobacco brands. I'll just get that out of there right now.
Yeah.
Um, so I personally think that that's very interesting. But as so to say, if you would be in a third world country, the first thing that you would probably want to do is try something like a VPN, and then attempt a survey.
That is that is a good approach.
Yeah, exactly. And a VPN being I believe, virtual privacy network. I'm not sure if I completely butchered that, but I might have.
I can pull it up in a second.
Yeah, so basically what a VPN does, it allows you to mask your current position on the globe by sending you to a different address, so to say, or a different virtual address somewhere around the world on one of the servers they host. So for any website that you go to, it would appear like you're in a different country, which does hinder the website's capabilities because it really slows down your network to a degree. But that has more to do with packet loss and that kind of stuff. So tell me, what's the acronym for?
Yep. Virtual network programming. No, never mind. I read the
That
wrong one.
I was about to say that doesn't sound right. How does it?
Yeah, virtual network. I can't find it on the. What is Google doing here? Well,
Well,
we can get to that later. But
yeah, exactly. But so that would most likely be one of the things that I'd look into if you are from one of those countries and you do want to, try and make something with this, because of course there could be potential there if your country is simply not paying you relatively anything. But with that out of the way, these are a lot of the things you do have to look out for when you're starting off with surveys,
yeah,
or just be aware of that. If you're at home and you're sitting on the couch due to any form of reasons, maybe you've been laid off, anything is better than nothing at the end of the day.
definitely.
So if everything turns against you, surveys may be a good thing. But if you do already have open chances, like you do have a job or you're already doing something that earns you money, there's a very high likeliness that surveys will simply add nothing, and I mean nothing, to your personal life.
Yes, literally. The prices are insanely low, which are going to also lead me to the next question. But the prices, no, not the prices. The margin that you can get out of service are just extremely low. They're
Yes.
basically not worth it. Basically not worth your time. I've seen people do service for 4 hours for €1. They literally spend 4 hours of their time doing surveys, and then in the end get a euro out of it. Like, that is not really worth it.
Yeah.
Also, it was a virtual private network, yes.
Thank you very much.
But that also leads me to the next question, or will re-lead me to the question of, is it really that worth it? Is our data literally a couple of cents worth it? Because
Yeah.
the money, if we just track the way our data goes, it obviously comes from us through the surveys, through the third party provider, which is going to be the survey website, all the way to the study, to the company, to the organization, basically the survey hosts. Um, Now, studies are not going to, well, hugely profit off of that, right? They can obviously get a new invention through that, a new insight about a certain product or about a certain thing, which in the end then makes money for a lot of people. But if you sell your, but if you think about it in other terms, let's just say our information goes to a company. This company is then able to adjust their product and then insanely, I mean really insanely, raise their um raise their profit margin off of that product. So, for example, we have let's just say we have a what'll be a good one. Let's just say we have scuba diving gear,
Hmm.
and now we take surveys from a lot of scuba divers, and we find out that the gear that we have has a certain flaw in it, or let's just say all the survey of all of these scuba divers had a question in the survey where it asked, what is the most annoying thing about scuba diving for you? And they say the my diving mask gets foggy a lot. Now I know obviously there are a lot of anti-fog scuba masks out there, but let's just say this certain thing doesn't exist yet. Now let's just say you have this scuba diving gear, and the mask is now through the to the now you basically just invent a mask that is anti-fog, so it doesn't fog up anymore underwater. And now you have a product that is so insanely competitive over all of the other products, and will definitely be bought by a lot of other people, that this company that makes these scuba diving masks just invests even more into that product, and now can make millions off of it. Just by well, this obviously just a very exaggerated example, but definitely one that can happen, and it's not really that unlikely. So what you're doing essentially, and what I'm trying to explain with this, is that these flaws that you find in certain things that get not even flaws, they don't even have to be flaws, certain information that can get you a competitive advantage over companies, over literal whole companies, you are selling in this case for cheap, for very cheap, for a couple of cents.
Yeah. What I do like adding to this actually, because it pulls to the back a little bit, is you, as a company at least, you have to kind of ask yourself, right? And I'm not sure if a lot of companies are actually aware of this, or they just aren't, or they don't really seem to care about it. Is the survey that I'm setting out online, right?
Yeah.
Do you really think that to a degree this will be very relevant information to the product?
Huh, that's an interesting question though. Yeah.
Because what I would personally think, at least, is if I'm a company setting out these surveys online,
Yeah.
somewhere in the back of my mind, right, I should know, or I should understand that the people filling out this survey probably don't do it due to their own personal interest,
Hmm.
but they might want to just get through it quickly.
Hmm.
And these things I find interesting because if you're not doing this constant screening before every survey,
Yeah.
you're also not going to quite know who it is reviewing this product. And they could be very out of touch. So that's why I do think that's important.
That's a good contrast, actually.
And
Well, you may go with this one.
what I do, or I would think, is an interesting or a more interesting way of using this would be like, let's say I have a jeans company which focuses very much on men from, like, let's say 30 until 45, right? Just throw out something weird like that, or
Mm-hmm.
people above the age of 30.
Yeah.
Um, and I sent out a survey. And of course, I would specifically want this survey to be filled out by the target given audience. And you could also ask very simple things. Of course, you need to know your people, so you're not going to tell them weird things like, what's your favorite kind of blue, right? Because chances are that this target group will probably not care too much about that, or you need to give them an example.
Mm-hmm.
But a fun one would be, if it's only the people in your target group answering, of course, would be, hey, what's your favorite color?
Mm-hmm.
Which you may think is, that's a bit of an odd question, or it sounds like something very weird to set out a survey for. But these very generalized questions might actually push you the furthest. Because if you know that, let's say you've put this survey out to 1,000 people, and
Yeah.
about 40% or even 30% of these people set this one certain color,
Yeah.
right? Or like an overwhelming amount of people named the same color,
Yeah.
it's very good for yourself to know that you really need to produce your product in this color,
Yes. Yeah.
because
Makes
you
sense.
instantly have a lot of given information regarding the product that you may not find out otherwise.
Uh-huh.
Because people are coming to your website, and even if they make a purchase, they will probably, unless they leave a review, which already will be an odd review, as we know,
Mm-hmm.
most product reviews are just simply the star amount, so 1 through 5, and then like dot dot dot, or they'll give something nice like, oh, the fabric was good, or something like that,
Yeah.
which is also necessary or good information to have as a product manufacturer. But it strays away a little bit from the aesthetics of what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
So you can know pretty damn well that if you're selling in that color, which is asked for by the majority of people, you will up your profit margins.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's always the gambler's fallacy in a way that, it could just be complete chance that all of these people just happen to have the same favorite color
But
or like
how
the same things.
but how big is the chance for that?
Yeah, exactly, right? If you keep going at that and you keep getting the same answer, you can be pretty sure of it.
Yeah.
And I think those may be the interesting ways of putting out surveys if you're a company that's looking to get into them. But do also know that most likely nothing will beat your personal your personal emailing lists, which you send out to your customers after a purchase. Because these, if they are answered very truthfully, and that's either because they simply like or dislike your product, and you can ask them a lot of things, and you won't even have to pay any money for it.
Yeah. But that's still but that still brings us to the same question, in my opinion, which is, should we sell our data this cheap?
Well, personally speaking, I would say, of course, as you have said prior as well, it depends on how much you value your data for, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, I do like to keep my data a little bit more on the low profile, but I would also fully understand it if there are people out there who simply do not care
Mm-hmm.
because they already have their entire lives on, let's say, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And for them, it's, well, there's not really any issue in showcasing any more of themselves in that way.
Yeah.
But if you are someone who likes to keep a low profile, definitely do not get into any of this. And I highly doubt that you'd be one of the people willing to get into service in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
So,
let's wrap it
yeah.
up.
Yeah. With that all being said, thank you all so much for watching the 8th episode of the Monday Money Podcast, coming at you live every Monday at 6 p.m. Central European Time. With that being said, Aaron, will you roll the credits?
So thank you all very much for listening in. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and you can join our Discord server. Thank you very much for listening, as always, and have a nice evening.